Okay, hello everyone. My name is Martin Meikop. I'm the founder of vint.ee, and today I'm going to tell you about my long journey with this project and what have I learned during all that time. So, I'm going through the history starting from the beginning and highlighting some of the milestones or turning points of the whole journey. I'll do a quick demo about vint.ee, talk a little bit about architecture, then this interesting competition I'm organizing, Sports Olympiad, a couple of words about that. I will show you some numbers and then try to answer why on earth have I invested so much of my personal time into such a hobby. And also I have some future plans, so I can share it with you. So it all started last century. In 1999, I went to a school in Nõo, started programming and also started playing online draughts. When I went to the university, the site I was playing in was closed. So I figured I want to create my own online draughts playing system. And then through this university time, I went to TTU, now it's called TalTech. I actually passed 5 courses with that one project. Plus I wrote the bachelor's and master's thesis about the project. And when I graduated, I figured, okay, I have the code. I guess I already had draughts plus chess at that time. I invited 3 of my Nõo classmates to join me and then they create this site and actually put it to live. So I was mainly coding Java backend and the front end was Java applets. Some guys knew more about PHP and then Jaanus knew more about PostgreSQL. So we started with this kind of stack because we wanted to do online games, browser-based online games. And back at that time, Java applets was one way to create a connection between the browser and the backend and to keep it alive and to actually push something from the backend to the browser. We had some custom CMS, which was developed by Kaspar, and we started with 3 games. It was chess, draughts, and Komoku, or 5 in a row. And thanks to internet Wayback Machine, we can actually see how the site looked like in 2007. So it's ugly as hell, but I guess we didn't know anything about design. But interesting things started to happen. In first year, we were contacted by Estonian Draughts Federation and Estonian Komoku Federation. We got this professional feedback about what kind of games are even popular in Estonia. Meaning what kind of games are played behind the board. And I was invited to one big meeting in Estonian Draughts Federation where I demoed my site. And then at the same meeting, they elected the new board for the next 4 years. And someone set me up as a candidate, and actually I was voted to be in this council board of Estonian Draughts Federation. So I was pretty quickly already someone in that federation. So We developed more games, and but soon in 2010 realized that Java applets is a dead technology. We figured that we need to rewrite the front-end part. Fortunately, we didn't choose Flash because that technology is already dead. But already in 2020 or 11, there was a thing called WebSockets. And we figured that we need to write the front end in JavaScript. My friend Jaanus started it. We used jQuery and jQuery UI, but the big problem was that it was unresponsive. So this is the old game room we had. The canvas was 400 times 400 pixels static, so it was not responsive. But we already saw that there are people who would like to donate something so that to keep the site alive, and we introduced this freemium model that the base functionality is for free. But if you would like to create your own tournaments, for an example, then you need to buy this VIP status, and then you can do it. And we also, at that time, identified us as Estonian Mind Sports portal, meaning that we wanted to be like more professional, not random entertainment-oriented game site, but actually do something more meaningful. We added our first card games during that time, more board games like Entropy and Othello. And then I had this friend from NO, my classmate and actually roommate, Tiit, who was solving a lot of Sudokus. And we figured that, okay, let's put also Sudoku solving to Vint. But the problem was that we wanted to provide like easy Sudokus and difficult ones. Who could generate those? I guess we searched for some existing software to do it, but we couldn't find. So I actually asked Tiit that maybe he would like to write something, some Java method that takes in Sudoku and outputs some number indicating how difficult would be to solve this specific Sudoku. Tiit took his time. He was actually learning this or studying construction, road construction in DTU, and maybe had a course or a couple of courses about programming, but he actually wrote this really complex piece of software, and yep, we at that time we already provided the Sudoku thing also in Vint. So in general, I figured that if you are a really talented guy, actually Tiit Vunk became a Sudoku world champion in 2016. So he is a really talented guy. So if you are one, you can code algorithms even without any previous know-how of programming. So then came the year 2016, and I had a pretty difficult time. I switched jobs. I did my own another proper startup. It didn't work out, and then I was unemployed in Tartu for half of the year. And what I did was that I took my kids and went to countryside, and for half a year I basically programmed Vint. So by the time we had already reached this backend stability, I guess it took us like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years to get there, so that we were pretty confident that there are no random deadlocks in Java threads and so on. So in 2016, I added a lot of card games, and also this 2048 game with all the card game tournaments and ratings. And the idea was that if we add more card games, we get more new players who like those card games, and maybe they start to play more serious games like chess and draughts. But actually what happened was the opposite. Like people went crazy. All those draught players started to play cards, and it was pretty bad. This is the statistics from 2014. Those numbers indicate played man hours. So 109,000 man hours per year. And the second column is about now 2016. So you can see that those Saskus and thousands card games were played as much as all the other games combined a couple of years ago. So I figured I need to do something about it. I already had this premium model, so I capped or limited those card games, meaning that for free you could only play 3 games per day. But if you want to play unlimited amount of games, you need to be this VIP customer and pay for it. And I grew this revenue actually 4 or 5 times during this year, and I saw that, whoa, actually there is some money in it. And it was actually a challenge so I don't know, maybe it's Estonians, maybe it's my generation, but we are like used to get all the entertainment from the internet for free. And I figured that people won't ever go and pay to play some stupid card games, but actually they did. And it was because those Saskus and thousands, they were really popular games 20, 30 years ago. And there was no place in the internet that you could play them, especially with your friends, Estonian friends. So, yep, people started playing and paying. And then in that year, I started my, I guess, most complex thing I have ever coded, crossword generation. So I wanted to provide those crossword solving ability. I didn't have any crosswords. I contacted those persons who actually put them crosswords together for the magazines. They told that there is actually no software that does it reliably and fast. But what I wanted, that if you click solve, it would take like a max a second, and poof, you have a new random crossword in front of you, and then you can start solving it. And the problem is that it sounds like easy. Like I started with 8x8 crosswords. But the problem is that you have limited amount of answers you can put into there. So I started a couple of things in parallel. First, I needed to figure where do I get those questions and answers at first place. But I had all those users, so I created a UI where users can enter them, and in return, I can give out like those VIP status, basically. Yep, by today, the users have entered 50,000 questions and answers to my database. And then in parallel, I started to tune the algorithm that puts the crossword together. Today, I'm in a state that this 8x8 crossword is generated on average in 10 milliseconds. 10 by 10 is 100 milliseconds, and 13 by 13 is 1 second generation time on average. But this was really tough to get there. And I have this gut feeling that I'm still doing something wrong, that I can improve it, but let's see. For now, it's all good. Maybe one day if I need to provide these 25 by 25 huge crosswords, first I need to improve the database, but secondly, maybe the algorithm as well. Okay, so time moved on, and if you remember, I mentioned that I started the project with 3 classmates from NO. Well, 2 of them dropped off after 3 or 4 years, seeing that there wasn't any serious money in it, and they weren't like board game or mind sports enthusiasts as well. And then the third partner, he kind of backed out around 2016. So in 2020, I figured that if I need to drag this wagon alone, I need to be single owner of the whole project. So I bought out all the former partners. Actually, some other friends told me that it would be a good idea that your brain will start thinking differently if you are a single owner. And that is actually what happened. And of course, Corona happened, which kind of introduced a couple of new opportunities. First of all, in 2020, Estonian Draughts Federation contacted me saying that, hey, we can't do those training classes behind the table anymore. We need to do it online. Can you code some training room for us? We have money. I said, okay, let's do it. And in 2020, I also figured out that if I ever want this Vint to be something, I need to rewrite the PHP part to slim and provide the site in multiple languages. By the time I have already received enough revenue or money to pay for the proper design and the HTML and CSS, those are still areas that I don't want to touch myself. So by the end of 2020, I had already like a decent looking responsive web in 11 languages. Actually, I received all those translations also for free. So there were players playing some Komokus or Rangus, and then they offered their help. So I basically sent them translation files, and then in a month or 2, they started sending me back all those translations. It was like pretty huge amount of them, 1,500 phrases or something like that. But anyway, I got them for free and now they are available. What else this year? In the beginning of this year, World Othello Federation contacted me saying that, hey, although there are 10 plus sites in the world where you can play Othello, and it is estimated that 10,000 players play Othello each day online, vint.ee might be the most professional site to play Othello. It's not about the playing experience itself, it's more about the additional functionality I had created around it, like those tournament systems, user profiles where you can add the user real name and then their country. The tournament tables looked nice and colorful. So they also told me that, hey, we have this Corona, but we want to have this Othello World Cup, meaning that different countries would be competing with each other. And then it will be a long tournament lasting for the whole year. So maybe I can code a specific team tournament format for them. And then they also offered me some money. I said, okay, why not? If people are paying me to improve my own site, then it's great. I took a lot of vacation days from ByteDrive and actually implemented the new tournament system. And then, as last year, I rewrote all the web part. I still had this jQuery and jQuery UI game room, and I needed to rewrite that as well. I started in February. I chose vanilla JS and TypeScript to do it. It took me 283 hours to do it. But last week I finished this project. So now I have also a responsive game room, which also opens in mobile and in different screens. And then actually in larger screens, the board is larger and then it looks more fancy. Yep, so it's demo time. Let me go to Vint. Let me change the language to English. So you can see on the menu here, maybe leaderboards is exciting, which players are. Actually, I can improve it and add some country flags here. Maybe. There is a forum, thousands of posts and topics during all those years. You can read about what this VIP status is. Then I created actually a special role for a user account, a trainer, and I actually give them out for free. Those are the people that actually train kids or adults in specific board games. They can do basically everything, create new user accounts, create tournaments, whatever. And it has been live for 2 years now, and I have trainers all around the world. There is one Brazilian guy who every day organizes Othello tournaments, and it's pretty cool. Then this Mind Sports Olympiad, I will talk about it later. We have a YouTube channel where you can see those videos are mostly in Estonian. I might add the current one to there as well. And then, yeah, you can read about Vint. So let's enter the game room itself. So I have divided all those games into 3 categories: board games, card games, other games. We can enter the chess room, see some ongoing game. Then I guess there are some card games going on here. Yep, this is Saisko. Sudoku, people are solving it. Others can't watch actually daily Sudokus, but as an admin, I can do everything. And tournaments, and there is even some ongoing tournament. It will start. Okay. Anyway, wanted to show you also those nice shiny tournament tables that people liked. I'm going to latest Othello tournaments. I have all kind of search functionality. You can search for all the tournaments. We have had over 1,000 Othello tournaments. I can sort by participant count. And yeah, this year we had a really big Othello tournament, and you can see all those different nationalities represented here. Okay, that's it for the demo. You can go and explore yourself and maybe solve some Sudokus or something. Let's continue with the presentation. So, architecture. I have a VPS in a service provider called TransIP, which is located in Netherlands. I'm actually thinking about moving it back to Estonia to Zone. I moved it there 7 years ago or something because it was twice as cheap. Still, it costs like 60 euros per month for me currently. But I have some network issues time to time, and then it's like global in Europe. On Monday morning, the ping was awful from Estonia to that Netherlands trans IP. So I'm using PostgreSQL, PHP Slim framework to provide the web. And then this game room communicates to backend to Java server, which is actually Java standard edition via WebSocket. And yep, I rewrote this game room in vanilla JS and TypeScript. Most of the stuff in this Java is written by myself. I even wrote WebSocket implementation classes myself to understand what's going on there. So it was really interesting. But of course, some libraries I use, like connecting to database and those. Yep. So how does the Java code look like in general? Created the 2 different threads for each customer to read from the socket or to write from the socket. There is probably an optimization to combine them into one single thread, but I took some really serious incidents to figure out that writing to the socket is a blocking operation. And I needed to have a thread around it. Then the other fundamental path I chose was to have a dedicated thread per every game room and then tournament room, and also one global thread. I chose it because I wanted those rooms to be independent, and it has already proved to work out well. I have had incidents in some of the card game rooms where all the room became unresponsive and was unresponsive until the end of the day where I could restart it. But all the other rooms worked perfectly. So if the message comes in, it goes to queue in the thread, and all the threads can add messages to the other queue, which sends out to the socket to that customer some JSON. All this protocol is like custom. I have created it over time myself. It's just JSON, nothing special there. And all those room handlers control the game states basically. And if the game state, well, there are timers. I mean, each of those games actually have some kind of timer. And if the timer wants to change the state of the game object, it cannot do it directly. It has to do it via the central game room thread. I chose it because to have this central queue of events, what happened first. It might be that timer which ends the game, some user is out of time, populates or triggers at the same time when this user makes a last second move, basically. So here I can decide which one came first and so on. In Frontend, I'm doing it quite in a similar way, but here it's not threads, but it's just JavaScript objects. Now in recent JavaScript versions, I can have classes and inheritance. And also when the message comes in, I'm deciding in some central class which objects should handle it. Those room handlers control the state of the game object. And then from there, I state the UI as well, if needed, if the user is actually playing the game or watching the game. Yep. So I kind of like inheritance. I use it a lot in. I used it a lot in backend in Java, and now I could use it also in the front end in JavaScript, meaning that all those room handlers, there is a pretty complex inheritance chain behind it, and I will provide you one example. So I have this game object. From there, I can extend single player games and multiplayer games. And then for single player games, it's simple, it ends there. Sudoku games and crossword games are single player games. But with multiplayer games, I have split it into duel games, which have some common functionality. For example, in duel games, you can invite other player to start the game. But with multiplayer card games, you have to create a table, and from there I can extend the Sasku game as an example. Duel games also split into board games, having some specific behavior which is related to board games, and I have also card games which is played only by two persons. And from board games, I can extend all my different board games. I have a lot of them, and this is actually not the end of it, because we have different like chess variants, Fisher random chess games. So I guess it's a framework. So if I need to bring in a new game, I have plans for Breach, which is a card game. I can just go and extend this multiplayer card game, and I get all this functionality about creating a game table, joining the game, card packs, rating systems. I get all of this out of the box, and all I need to do is just to write Breach game logic in the backend, and then the UI in the front end. And in the front end, I have similar stuff for game UI or game tables, actually. Maybe I have over-engineered it, but actually I like it. I don't know. Would like to hear some comments from you after that. In 2011, I figured that, okay, I have this platform. Maybe I can do something useful with it. And I started to organize an event for Estonian school children called Mind Sports Olympiad. By today, it's in the format that there are 60 tournaments played each year in chess and draughts and Kumoku, Sudoku and crosswords. The participation is free, so there is no money in it. I give out 54 named medals, meaning I actually carve the kids' names onto those medals after the tournaments are played, and 18 trophies each year. And I had over 1,000 students from 80 schools last year participating, and total amount in 9 years is also over 4,150 schools. So if you go and Google mõttespordi olympiad in Estonian language and search for images, you get a lot of those articles in school papers and all those pictures about kids playing on a software you have written. So it's actually a pretty good feeling. Today is actually the registration deadline for schools for this year competition. I hope to see also 1,000 plus students participating. And someone asked me for how long do I have the energy to organize it. I'm figuring when I have 10,000 kids participating or participated in that event. So maybe 10 more years. Let's see. Some statistics. I have spent 6,500 hours developing the site, and at least the same amount of playing. So in total, I have written 40,000 lines of code in Java, 15,000 lines of code in TypeScript. This is this year project, and 30,000 lines of code in PHP. So total 80,000. And I actually can provide you data. How has it been throughout the years? Why? Because one of the founders, Jaanus, was working in toggle.com, which is an Estonian startup. And we were one of the first users of Toggle, and we have tracked each hour put into this project from the beginning. So you can see, like, it was a lot of effort at start, then it kind of cooled down. Then this 2016 happened, and it then I joined Pipedrive, and I had other challenges. And then this recent last year's COVID, and I took a lot of vacation days from Pipedrive just to code. This year it won't be so good, but I guess maybe 500 hours by the end of the year. Yep. Other stats. I have 26 games. 30 tournaments played every day on average, 90,000 tournaments played in total, 3,000 unique users weekly, 100,000 users yearly, according to Google Analytics. Now, this is new stuff that 75% of the traffic comes from Estonia and already 25% traffic externally. There is 1.35 million played chess games and the same amount of draughts games. 2.4 million Sudoku solved, less crosswords solved, but crosswords is way newer functionality anyway. And in total, 1.6 million man hours played in vint.ee. And I took the stats of who are those external visitors. This is 3-month stats from Google Analytics. So you can see quite many players from China, Macau. They are mostly playing Renju and Komoku and Othello as well. And also Russia and the United States are nicely represented here. So yep, all over the world. And then this is mainly because of Othello Othello Federation stating that our site will be like de facto site where we even introduced this official Othello online rating, which can be only updated at vint.ee by playing in certain tournaments. So the important question, why am I doing it? So I like to code is first answer. I already made a conscious decision in 2007 that I want to code vint.ee a lot. So I didn't choose to work as a full-time developer professionally. I took all those other roles like project management, analysts, and all that stuff. And what has it given to me that I actually learned by myself how backend works, how databases work, how network works. Recently, I got a lot of better idea how browsers work. And it has opened a lot of doors to me. I mentioned I did a proper startup in 2015 and I found an investor, and this investor actually chose me. One of the reasons was that I could already show that I can work on one project for a long time. Back then it was already for 8 years working with Vint. And when I joined Pipedrive, one of the interviews was with Henk, and he actually listened and asked many questions about this Vint development and the Mind Sports Olympiad. And in the end of the interview, he actually told that I would fit Pipedrive pretty well, and I guess he wasn't wrong. I have got a lot of new friends, everyone who is anyone in Estonian chess or Komoku or Draughts federations know me, and I know them, and we are doing joint tournament series. I have also received some extraordinary friends. It was 2012. I was walking home in Tartu Old Town, and suddenly a police van stopped besides me. A policeman came out straight to me and saying that, "Yo, Makeup, I accidentally closed my vint.ee account. Can you open it?" I was like, "Okay, cool. What is your username?" And now I have friends in police. How cool is that? A lot of public speaking experience. I have been to 10 plus schools talking about mind sports, Vint, programming, IT in general. If you go to YouTube and Google my name, you can see that last year I did some live streaming with some mind sports. This was international competition, this mind sports Olympiad. Then this Estonian podcast invited me to talk about the same Vint. You can see some familiar faces here, actually. And Getmar, a former bike driver, invited me to talk about my hobby. So anyway, it has improved those public speaking skills a lot for me. And also there is this maybe idea that maybe it will be the fourth pension pillar. But I have to state that vint.ee is alive 15 years after it was founded, because we didn't do it for the money. It was like a pure hobby. And I don't have any deadlines. I'm going in my own pace and when I have the motivation, and that's why it's still existing, and that's why I want to develop it further. Which brings us to the last topic. What is next? I didn't tell you about the fundamental problems in backend. The problem with backend is that the state of the games and the online user lists and this is kept in Java memory. So if I need to upload a new version, I upload this jar file and I need to restart the Java process, which means all the ongoing games are broken. Currently, I can still find the time slot in the mornings where there are really few games ongoing, and I just go and forcefully restart it. But it might become a problem. And the second problem is horizontal scaling. Currently, I'm confident that vint.ee can take maybe 2,000 to 3,000 concurrent users. I'm pretty far from that number anyway. But there might become a day where I have at least 1,000 plus and then see that it is growing. So I need to start thinking about rewriting the backend and keeping the state somewhere else. Maybe rewriting it in a totally different language. I don't know, but it's like 40,000 lines of code and game logic. So let's see. Would still like to bring in new games. especially games where you can't play anywhere else in Estonia, at least. Bridge is one idea I have, thinking about the kids and how they can learn it more easily. Scrabble in Estonian language is another cool game I like to play myself. There is no option to play it online right now. Then I can introduce more unique tournament systems in chess, checkers, Komoku, Othello board games. You don't have those kind of tournament formats anywhere in any other site. Maybe to open source it, I don't know. I have put so much energy into it. If I open source it all, maybe someone just takes the code and spins up his own site. Maybe open source part of it, like Frontend code, which is actually available anyway. And those Othello guys actually are already questioning me about the idea of making a copy of this vint.ee, spinning it up and then to run it in a totally different server as a separate Othello site where you can only play Othello. You have only Othello-based forums, only Othello tournaments and stats around that. It will introduce challenges how to write code in central place and deploy it then to separate servers. But on the positive side, there is definitely some monetization in it. I won't do it for free for them. So let's see where we get with that. So we have some time for questions.